Welcome to another episode of Stories from the Edge of Life. We once again have a very special guest, Coleen Sichel. Welcome back, Coleen.
Thank you. Hello.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself with our audience?
So my name is Coleen Sichel, and I am an RN registered nurse, and I'm also a WOCN, which is a wound ostomy nurse.
Great. And I'm
Yeah.
Parag Bharadwaj. I'm a hospice and palliative medicine physician. Uh, so, Coleen, we had you for a previous interview where you spoke about your professional journey, and this one is going to focus more on how working in hospice would have influenced the way you think about life and your perspective on life. To get started, one of the things that struck me was that uh, you have three children. Two of them were born after you started working with hospice. So how was that particular phase in your life when you are going to be bringing a life into this world, and at the same time you're taking care of patients that are dealing with end of life situations?
It had a big impact. I think, for one, one of the things when I would go out at night, when I came back home, I would pop my head in and just watch them sleep and just felt gratitude for the little lives that I had, in my home. And I mean, that can bring me to tears because I can just remember so much how grateful I was for my three precious babies. So I started with San Diego Hospice when my oldest son, he was 1 year old when I started. And then I got pregnant with my daughter, and I stayed working till about 1 week before she was born, I think. 2 weeks, she was a little late, so maybe 2 weeks before she was born. And so one of the times I was very pregnant, and I was in a patient's home, and it was a early morning visit, and I think I had been up too much at night, and I actually fainted in her house. and I just remember hearing her say, "I just don't want that baby born here." And so they called the triage nurse, and then my husband and my younger son, or my older son, my 1 2-year-old at that time, they came and picked me up and went to make sure everything was okay with the baby, and she was fine. I think that might have been when I said, I'm going to take these next couple of weeks off, because it didn't occur to me that you take time off before your baby's born. You take all your time after the baby's born. And then I had my other son, and so my third child, I worked. I didn't work quite as much. I didn't do 3 12-hour shifts. I might have done 2 12-hour shifts, but I remember very clearly there was one woman who I would go out. I had made several visits at night to see her, and the reasons why they would call me is because it seemed like at night she would get really, really anxious. And we were trying to figure out, it was like during the day, maybe it was a sundowner thing where, at night when the sun went down, she got more confused. And I don't think we ever really figured it out. But I remember one of the medications that she'd been given was Ativan. We were trying to figure out, is the Ativan contributing to her anxiety? And I remember one time, and I'd seen her either 2 or 3 times at night over maybe the course of a couple of months when she had symptoms. And one time in the midst of her anxiety, and I was probably 6-7 months pregnant, she looked at me and she put her hand on my stomach and she says, "You will be blessed." And I was like, I was shocked, and I've never forgotten the look in her eyes. And just in the midst of all her anxiety and her confusion, she looked straight at me and said that. And I was speechless. And so, and that just kind of then helped me realize, I'm doing this for me, and this is part of my job, but somehow these babies that I'm bringing into the world, they're part of this. They're part of the story of as we say goodbye, there are new life that comes in, and I saw full circle. As we were saying goodbye, and sometimes it was saying goodbye to someone who was dying young with cancer, and then another one, and this. So I don't know if I'm going too quickly into one of my stories, but one of them was a child. So there's I was on call, and this is further on. I think I had kids; they were older, and I must have already done one visit because I was in my car downloading the patient information on the computer. So we were already with computers. We weren't using the printed lists and Thomas Brothers anymore. We had computers, we had navigation, and yeah, the navigation was key because so I was in a place in Pacific Beach. So I lived over in La Mesa, but for some reason I was in Pacific Beach. So I must have been already on a visit. And I was pulled into a McDonald's parking lot, downloading my computer, getting all of the patient information. And they had a call for me in Spring Valley, and that was near where I lived. And so I thought, okay, so I kind of knew the area. I'd go one freeway to another, and I would get there in 15, 20 minutes, and I had it all planned out. And then with where I was parked, so if you were familiar with Pacific Beach, and I won't go into the details, it was kind of a tricky on-ramp. And I realized I was going the wrong direction on the freeway, and there was no way for me to turn around. And the visit that they were having me go to was a 7-year-old child who had been crying for hours, and the family was trying to help her, trying to make her comfortable. And I'm on the freeway, and I'm on the wrong direction on the freeway, and I'm like, this is the worst time that I could ever imagine taking the long way to get somewhere. And I was furious with myself, and I was I just couldn't get beyond where I was. So finally, I go the long way and get to the patient's house, get to the family's home. And it was a mother and a father and a 7-year-old little girl. And the girl had, I don't remember what kind of cancer, but they were just trying to make her comfortable, and she'd been crying. They were Spanish speaking, and I knew very little Spanish. Thankfully, the doctor who was on call knew Spanish. And so we were able to, with the bottles, with the printed bottles, I think they were printed in Spanish. I think the prescriptions that we could get were in Spanish. And so between the doctor who was on call, me, kind of doing my picking a few words, and with the printed prescription bottles, we were able to get the child to be peaceful, to be comfortable. And I even with everything that we could do to make her stop crying and comfortable, I remember leaving that home feeling helpless. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't take away what was going on in this child's life. And that, I had children, probably, right? I had young children too, and I just couldn't imagine going through what this family was going through. And I felt like I did one little thing that was just a drop in the bucket. So then that was kind of early in my shift, and I finished my shift. I don't even remember if I was busy or not, but then the next day, my dad had gotten into town, and he and I were sitting at the kitchen table. And my dad, when he came to visit me, he usually got lost. And when he was on his way down, and he got lost, and he was driving the direction I was trying to go. When I went the wrong way, I got into the one freeway that I was going the wrong freeway, and I wanted to go the right one that would have gotten me quicker. Well, my dad was on that freeway, and he was on that, and he goes, I was stuck in an hour traffic, and I couldn't get anywhere. And then I opened up the paper and found out that there had been a propane tank that blew up in a truck and stopped traffic at 9 o'clock on that freeway. And I was speechless because I was like, wow, if I had gone the direction I wanted to go, I would have been stuck in the traffic. But I wasn't, and I got to be there as soon as I could. And so it just helped me, realize that in the midst of what I thought would be the worst thing, being late, I wanted to help this child. I wish I could have cured this child. I wish I could have done more. But it helped me understand I did what I could. I did what I was supposed to do. And I was on the right road, even though I thought I was going the wrong direction. So that was one time where there was no explanation.
Yes, Coleen, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think you're doing very well. And are you okay with us continuing this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And these are the things I love
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah.
It's the things that make you speechless that I love sharing, because it's the beauty that I think when you work with hospice and there's more going on than what we can see. It's a part of life. Dying is a part of life that it's hard. We don't want to talk about it, and it hurts. But it's a part of we were born, and we're all going to leave this world at some point.
I know you mentioned that you feel like what you did for the family was a drop in the bucket, but I'm sure that they felt very appreciative of you getting the child, comfortable.
Yeah. I just wanted to help them sleep. I just wanted them to be able. That was one of the things that I always, when I left at night, I wanted them to be peaceful. I wanted to, when I left, I was always hoping, I hope you can just lay down and close your eyes a little bit. That was my goal, I think, when I went to see people at night.
Yeah. So just to confirm, that child was well taken care of and was comfortable, and I think that's what we try to strive for in taking care of our patients, that at least they're comfortable and they don't suffer.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, you were very on point. I was going to ask you if you ever got to see to take care of children, because you had your own kids. So overall, how did your experience change your perspective about life? Or did it?
It made me value the impression you leave with someone when you leave. It made me value, for some reason, I have a hard time with goodbyes, but I also realize how important they are. When you say goodbye, you're intending to see them again, but you never know. I know I shared with you that my mom died suddenly, and I just think, well, when was the last time we talked? I'm sure it was the night before, but I have another little story that was a final goodbye, and it was just a beautiful, like, what's going to be your last goodbye? How do we say goodbye? And so I was on call, and I was called up to a gentleman's house. He was taking care of his wife. She'd had some kind of ovarian cancer, and she'd been battling for like 9 years, off and on, and they'd had some good years. And so they had called me up. The triage nurse said, basically the lady is comatose. He just needs to be, taught what to do now that she can't talk. She can't, he just, she's in bed. She's not talking. He just needs to know how to take care of her now. And it was a beautiful story because he shared it with me. He said that she'd been restless and for a couple of days and very uncomfortable and maybe confused, and that she'd been given some medication to help her be comfortable. And he said sometime in the middle of the night, he was at her bedside, and he said she opened her eyes, looked up, gave him the most passionate kiss, and closed her eyes, and then went into a coma. And so my role, and so he shared that story with me, and he was almost kind of blushing when he's like, she's not kissed me that way in years. And just, I felt almost intrusive for him to share that with me, but it was such a privilege that that he shared it with me. And then my role was just to show him how to take care of his wife, how to honor his wife these last hours or maybe a day before she finally passes. And it was it was very special. It just reflected, it really helped me understand of last goodbye. Because, if we could all leave our spouse and give them the most passionate kiss that they can remember, wouldn't that be beautiful?
Yeah, I think as I'm listening to you, what I'm sensing is the power and importance to that a good goodbye has.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
And I think that shaped me very much in how I wanted to, take care of people, because you wanted them to have that opportunity. And that's what hospice supported was to create the opportunity for people to have their best moments before they, to give them dignity before they pass.
yeah, it's interesting you say that, because most folks would typically think that's one of the worst time of somebody's life, but it can also be a very powerful and perhaps the most beautiful time of their life, right?
Yeah. Well, and you did ask about how having kids affected me, or having kids, and it reminds me, like when I remember when I went to deliver my babies at the hospital, and I would share with them, the nurses, they're like, oh, you help people out of this world and we help people into this world. And it just, I realized that I wanted nothing to do with babies or with labor and delivery. I was never one of the things I wanted, but I saw the beauty in being with people as they passed. And I think I was always also a little romantic in my vision of when I was there when someone died, that there was like a little opening into heaven, and maybe my mom was just on the other side of it. That she was somehow guiding me in what I was doing, and it made me feel closer to her.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. So before we wind up, what is it that you would like to share with our audience in terms of what they should keep in mind as they go through their lives? What is most important from your perspective? What brings most value? You've heard it from so many patients and their family members. What is it that you would like to convey to them?
I would just say to be grateful for the things that happen and for who's around us. And I think just being grateful. I think I never would have asked. I never wanted my mother to die. I could never wish for something, of course. But for the bad things, for the sad things that happen in our life, somehow be grateful for the good things that come from it, from the things that we learn, from the things that happen. And then, just to be grateful. I think one thing that left an impression on me was I was taking care of a woman who had breast cancer in my children. I love them, and that's all I can do.
Coleen, could you repeat what you just said? Because I think we had an issue with the connection.
Yeah.
So,
I
so you said
think just for my children to know that they are loved. And then I think that just goes beyond to the people around you. Just know that you love them. And just, you know, to be grateful and to, you know, for the people you love, make sure they know it. This sounds simple. Sometimes it's not as simple as it is, but it gets complicated. But just, you know, say it, do it, help people know they're loved and they're important to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that perspective. And thank you for being so candid and sharing your personal experiences with us. I know it's not always very easy to bear it.
Well, I'm honored that we are getting to share these, you know, very special times. And like as you're they're on the, many people don't want to hear the edge of life. And it is a very powerful, important time.
Well, thank you. Thank you again, Coleen, and we hope to have you back again and share some of your other wonderful experiences that you've had in your career.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again soon.
All right. Bye-bye.